Hello there, as a famous space wizard likes to say, and you will see soon why I decided to open the video like that. So you want to draw a spaceship, but you're still having difficulties with it. Well, let me help you out. In this video, I want to give you a couple of tips to help you out on your journey to build your own fun little spaceships. We will, however, start out with the assumption that since you want to draw spaceships, you already understand perspective. And if not, I would recommend you check out some perspective related videos, maybe even mine. A spaceship needs a cockpit, engine, and a cargo area. Of course, a spaceship needs a lot more, but these are the three minimum things we will need for ours. And all we have to do from here on out is try to come up with a shape that holds all of these three elements in whatever configuration we would like. Let us start with this useful little box, which we will use as the main building material, and we will add and, well, not subtract, but add into every direction. So what can we do with this box? As we said in the beginning, we will need a cockpit on top of it, and it would be nice for it to have a little bit of a front, and we can also give it a thruster. Now, this is sort of, I don't know where the cargo space is, so what I can do is take away the thruster, give it a back area like this, and maybe also give it the thruster there. So this is already nicer. We could go technically further. We say, oh, we could add some wings, and on the wings it could have some turbines like this. Or if you don't like this this wedge, we can add a different kind of wedge, and it looks interesting and cool like this as well. But if you say, okay, I don't care about the wedge, I do not care about the wings or the thruster and the turbines there either, what you can do is give it a bigger box around that small box, and then a front that goes with it. This looks relatively cool. I could also take back this back because I feel it's not really needed. I can give it like something like a tail, and then from here on you could also give it some smaller wings, maybe something like this, and then instead of the round turbines we can give it some square turbines. So this is also an option that we can do. But because everything is so square, I would want to exchange these for rounded. So we have something round as well. And now I can draw over this. And if I draw over this, we get something like this. So let me take away the opacity of this one. There we go. So it's pretty much the same shape. I just added a whole bunch of details. So once you have the shape, you just have to add a small detail. And let us quickly build another one as well. So back to the box. I liked that back of it. I am going to give it some round thrusters in the back. How about we give some opening to the side? And I did like that wedge front. That looked quite interesting. And let's bring back a cockpit, because we also need a cockpit. And I think this is pretty cool. Now let's see what happens if I draw over this. Then I get this ship here. And as you can see, pretty much sticking to the exact details that I have there. Of course, some minor adjustments here and there. I rounded shapes here and there, but it is the spaceship based on these very simple blocks that I put together for myself. As you can see, it's relatively easy to come up with elements that fit relatively well together and create variations by switching these up. These ships, however, as you can see, are a little bit rigid. If you want to make your spaceship a little bit more interesting, here are a couple of steps that can help you along the way. Step 1, create a world. What is the purpose of your spaceship? Is it just to be cool, or is it a specific purpose? Both are fine, but it's good to know what exactly you're going for. Either way, you can give it some character and come up with a small backstory around it. World building, in this case at least, works both ways. You can fit a story around the spaceship that you just designed, or you create the world and you design a ship that will fit into that world. For the ship sketches I did for this year's Shiptober, I used a generic new human colony scenario that's been in my head for the longest time. I thought about what sort of roles my ships can fill in this world that I created. And since I tried to make this world a little bit fun and whimsical, consequently also my ships turned out to be not super serious. For this video, let's go the Star Wars route, hence the intro, and do more of a sci-fi fantasy world. Let's take a medieval setting where you had castles and lords and peasants around the castles. Let's take a dairy farmer who has a bunch of cows and every morning delivers milk to the castle and the other peasants living around at the castle. Now, let's enhance this medieval setting with a bunch of sci-fi elements. The castle is set on a small moon of a gas giant. The peasants live on homesteads on asteroids around the moon, and the milk the farmer brings is collected from giant space whale type animals that feed off of a nearby nebula. Don't have to go too realistic, just have fun with it. Step 2, give it a style and direction. Let's do some stealing. Who do you like? Who inspires you? Create a mood board. Here's mine. I like Jake Parker's very fun and playful style. For whimsy, I always think back of Akira Toriyama's vehicles from his Dragon Ball series. And I am a big fan of Franco-Belgian comic styles because they tell serious stories with very approachable visuals. So this is the sort of whimsy and style that I want to follow in my drawings. Step 3, ideation approaches. Now we have the world and the style, let's define what our spaceship does. And again, we don't have to be super original here. We can take a look at what current or earlier milk delivery trucks looked like and what they did, how they functioned. What sort of examples are there in the world? There's always some fun to be had when Googling these. Just like in the previous example, our spaceship needs a cockpit, an engine, and a cargo area for space milk in this case. So keep these in mind when we design our spaceship. Step 4, methods. There are many approaches to get rid of the scary white paper and get started with ideation. I will mention 3 in this video. Drawing a blob and then filling that shape with a spaceship. There are several caveats worth mentioning here. Sometimes I draw several blobs and try to fit a spaceship into each of them. In this case, I only give one example to fit the video. But either way, the point is for you to be able to get started, not to be intimidated by the white of the paper, and to help you generate a variety of different shapes that you can later explore. I also did not stick to the first blob I put down. It can happen that you just don't think something fits or the shape of the blob doesn't give you any interesting ideas how to fill it. No problem, you just draw a new blob until you find one you like. Once you have enough ideas, start detailing and refining the ideas a bit. Then you choose the one you like most and detail the one as much as you would like. In this case, I ended up with a bit of a forced shape, but that is the fun of it, that sometimes you come up with something that really doesn't qualify as a traditional spaceship shape. In this case, we have a very function-oriented design with a small cockpit in the front and the big box for all the space whale milk in the back. But since I wanted to go for a more whimsical look, this might actually make sense in the world that I created. If you would like to see these sped up videos in full time, take a look at my Patreon where you can find these and also other goodies. Starting out with basic shapes and cutting and transforming them till you have a spaceship. This is pretty much the same approach as what we did in the first part of the video, with the added caveat that we have a world that we are creating our spaceship for, and we have a purpose for our little flying milk cart. Another difference is that I don't necessarily fit basic shapes together, but I start out with a big block and cut pieces out of it. I also add pieces to it and start cutting those as well till I have an interesting enough shape. In this case, I ended up with something that looks very familiar to me. It has a bit of an ice cream feel, a bit of race hovercraft thing from The Force Awakens. I feel like this is a generic sci-fi shape, which isn't necessarily a problem since there is enough to differentiate it in my opinion, but it's worth keeping in mind that if you are not satisfied, you can always start cutting and pasting more areas of the shape and come up with different designs. Aside from all that, I have the cargo compartment for the milk, the cockpit area and the engine area, plus it has charm to it with all its rounded shapes. So I'm fine with it. Starting with a design element you like, building on that and transforming it till you have a new spaceship. Now, this one can be a bit tricky because you want to make sure that you don't just literally steal something someone else created, but get inspired by it. In the small thumbnail, I used the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon and then slapped something around it. Make sure that you make more adjustments than just that. While you can take some elements, I would suggest you never just lift parts of other people's designs. Rather, use them as inspiration. In the design I am working on, I was inspired by the interesting angle the cabin of the milk delivery truck was positioned in, and I thought that would be a cool starting point for a cockpit of my little ship. From there on, it almost turned into a little dinghy or a mix of a delivery tuk-tuk and a dinghy. I think in the end I like this the most when it comes to fitting into the story. I think that it has to do with the level of whimsy that this design has. And it is quite interesting because by following the starting point of the cabin, the whole design automatically adjusted to it. And I feel this little ship has its own story to tell. Also important to mention here, you don't necessarily have to get inspired by the type of milk delivery truck if you are drawing a milk delivery ship. Your inspiration can be the bud of a rose or an armchair or a product in your kitchen. Doesn't matter what you choose as long as you see promise in that certain shape. And of course, you don't have to stick to one or the other method strictly. You can mix and combine them as you see fit. Always use the tool that works best for you. With that, we have come to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and most importantly, you learned something from it. As always, if you have questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below, because I really enjoy hearing what your opinion is on these kind of videos. If you really liked the video and you would like to support me, there is a link to my Patreon and other options in the description down below. Speaking of Patreon, I want to thank my lovely patrons whose support means a lot to me. But as always, the most important thing is that you folks have a great time, and see you in the next video. Bye bye!